Welcome to MIPS Tips for Eligible Clinicians with the QPP News Team.
Today we are going to cover MIPS tip number 8, understand the principles of the patient-centered medical home.
That is an interesting tip, Sandy. I like the medical home model of care delivery, but what does that have to do with MIPS and the Macro Quality Payment Program?
Well, a lot, Dr. Paul. The MACRA legislation creates a number of incentives for eligible clinicians to practice in a patient-centered medical home and to incorporate the principles of the PCMH into their practice organization and their clinical workflows.
So what are those incentives, my MIPS tips friends? Susan, do you have any insight?
Yes, I do. There are a number of ways that the MACRA QPP offers incentives for patient-centered medical home. First, do you remember the Clinical Practice Improvement Activity category of the MIPS Composite Performance Score?
I sure do. I believe that it will make up 15% of the total composite score in the first 2 performance years.
That's right. Well, eligible clinicians or groups who are recognized as a patient-centered medical home by a nationally recognized accreditation program will be given the highest potential score for the CPIA performance category.
So nationally recognized patient-centered medical homes will get full credit for the CPIA.
That's right. You got it. 15% of the composite score.
Sandy, does the Quality Payment Program incentivize patient-centered medical homes in any other way?
Well, in fact, it does, Dr. Paul. The MACRA statute establishes medical home models that are expanded under the Center for Medicare and Medicaid Innovations, or CMMI, to qualify as advanced alternative payment models. If all the other criteria are met by an eligible clinician, those practicing in those medical home models would be eligible for the APM payment incentives.
That's interesting. Do we know what medical home models will qualify as advanced APMs?
Well, CMS has yet to publish its final rule, but in the proposed rule, the Comprehensive Primary Care Plus, or the CPC Plus model, will qualify as a medical home model expanded under the CMMI statute.
So we know that the eligible clinicians who are practicing in nationally recognized patient-centered medical homes or a CMMI expanded medical home model will receive credit for their delivery model. But our MIPS tip encourages all QPP-eligible clinicians to understand the principles of the patient-centered medical home, even those who are not in a medical home. Can you explain why, Susan?
I sure can. It's because many of the proposed activities for the CPIA are built around the principles of the patient-centered medical home. The MACRA legislation calls for a minimum of 5 subcategories for the CPIA performance category. 1, expanded practice access. 2, population management. 3, care coordination. 4, beneficiary engagement. And 5, participation in alternative payment models. 4 of these subcategories align really well with the principles and standards of the patient-centered medical home.
Well, that's right, Susan. In the proposed rule, there are an additional 4 proposed subcategories for the CPIA performance category. Those subcategories include 1, the patient safety and practice assessment, 2nd, the achieving health equity, then the emergency response and preparedness, and 4th, the integrated behavioral and mental health.
So this confuses me a little bit, Sandy. Over the years, I've come to know many of the standards for patient-centered medical homes that are set by accrediting organizations, and these particular subcategories sound different to me. Why is that?
I think you'll find that not all of the language used in the MACRA QPP will align perfectly with the language used by the accrediting bodies, but you will find that the principles really do align nicely. So if you're ready to embrace the patient-centered medical home concept, you'll be well prepared to embrace the clinical practice improvement activities.
Okay, I get that. So where do I find out more about the patient-centered medical home? And if I want to be recognized as a patient-centered medical home for the Quality Payment Program, how does that happen?
Well, right now there are 4 nationally recognized accreditation programs that result in recognition by CMS for the purposes of the MIPS Clinical Practice Improvement Activities category. These are the Accreditation Association for Ambulatory Healthcare, or the HHHC, the National Committee for Quality Assurance, NCQA, the Joint Commission, and the Utilization Review Accreditation Commission, or URAC. You can obtain information from these organizations about the standards, and you can work with them to be recognized as a PCMH.
And don't forget about CPC Plus. CMS is planning to implement the program in up to 20 regions and can accommodate up to 5,000 practices. That provides an advanced primary care medical home model opportunity for more than 20,000 doctors and clinicians.
Yes, I understand it has the potential to improve care for over 25 million people. Practices that are PCMH recognized and have dedicated teams and resources, leading to a QI culture that inspires better performance outcomes.
Wow, that is some major innovation. So it makes sense to get busy and understand the principles of the patient-centered medical home.
Yes, it's another great MIPS tip to help our viewers prepare for MIPS 2017. Understand the principles of the patient-centered medical home. Join us for our next MIPS tip when we dig a little deeper into the clinical practice improvement activities and interview a certified professional in PCMH to get her take on MIPS CPIA category.
And also, take a look at the other episodes in our video series, MIPS Tips for Eligible Clinicians. Thank you for watching the QPP News Team.